Imagine you're standing in the middle of a brightly lit electronics store. You didn't come here to buy anything specific. You were just passing through. But then your eyes land on it. A sleek silver laptop, thinner than a notebook, with a screen so vibrant it makes the world around it look dull. You don't need it. Your current computer works perfectly fine. But as you stand there, you feel a strange, tightening sensation in your chest. Your pulse quickens. A voice in the back of your head starts whispering, "Think of how much more productive you'd be. Think of how people would look at you when you open this in a cafe. It's on sale. If you don't get it now, you're losing money." Before you've even consciously decided to reach for your wallet, your brain has already justified the purchase, bypassed your savings goals, and ignored the rent payment due next week. You walk out of the store with a heavy bag and a fleeting hit of dopamine. But by the time you reach your car, that high is replaced by a sinking, familiar dread. You ask yourself, why do I keep doing this? Why is it so hard to just do the smart thing? You feel like you're fighting a losing battle against your own willpower. You feel like you're broken. But what if I told you that you aren't weak and you aren't lazy? What if the reason you struggle to save is that your brain is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do 20,000 years ago? Hi, I'm Rabbi Soul. Together, we'll decode the ultimate laws of money, helping you understand the root of wealth and master the financial game. We've been told a very specific, very clinical story about money. We're told that financial success is a matter of simple math. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference in a diversified portfolio, and wait 40 years. It's logical. It's rational. And yet, for the vast majority of us, it feels nearly impossible to execute consistently. When we fail to follow that math, we treat it as a moral failing. We call ourselves impulsive, financially illiterate, or lacking in discipline. We carry the weight of that shame every time we look at a credit card statement. But this perspective completely ignores the hardware we're running on. You see, the modern financial world, the world of credit scores, compound interest, and digital stock trading, has only existed for a heartbeat in the grand timeline of human history. For 99% of our existence as a species, we didn't have banks. We didn't have currency. We didn't have a future that we could reliably plan for. Our brains, however, were forged over millions of years in an environment where saving for the future usually meant you wouldn't survive the night. Most people believe they are bad with money because they lack character, but the reality is far more fascinating and far more forgiving. You are trying to navigate a world of complex financial instruments using a brain that is still wired for the African savanna. Your survival instincts, the very things that kept your ancestors alive through ice ages, famines, and predator attacks, are the exact same instincts that fight against your wealth-building habits today. We don't actually have a money problem. We have a biological mismatch. To build true wealth, we have to stop punishing ourselves for being human and start understanding the ancient, invisible software that is quietly running our lives. To understand why your brain is working so hard to keep you in a state of scarcity, we have to travel back to a time when wealth wasn't a number on a glowing screen, but the amount of physical energy you had stored in your body. For the vast majority of human existence, resources were scarce, fleeting, and entirely unpredictable. If your tribe stumbled upon a high-calorie fruit tree or successfully brought down a large animal, there was no way to store that abundance. You couldn't save a mammoth for your retirement 30 years down the road. In that environment, the only logical, survival-oriented move was to consume as much as possible, as fast as possible. This created an evolutionary trait that psychologists call present bias. Our ancestors who focused on the immediate now were the ones who survived to pass on their genes to you. Those who tried to plan for a distant, hypothetical future often died of hunger or exposure long before that future arrived. Today, that same instinct is what makes a $50 dinner tonight feel infinitely more valuable and real to your brain than $5,000 in a retirement account 3 decades from now. When you see a limited time offer, your ancient brain doesn't see a marketing tactic. It sees a bush full of berries that will be gone by tomorrow. Your brain isn't being stupid when it chooses the immediate reward. It's being biologically efficient based on a reality that no longer exists. Then, we have to consider the intense social pressure of our biology. For an ancient human, being cast out of the tribe wasn't just an emotional blow. It was a literal death sentence. To stay within the safety of the group, you had to maintain your status. You had to look capable, resourceful, and successful. In the modern world, this deep-seated need for tribal belonging has mutated into what we call lifestyle creep, or keeping up with the Joneses. When you see a friend post a photo of their new house, or you see a colleague wearing a luxury watch, your ancient survival brain doesn't see a depreciating asset or a high-interest loan. It sees a shift in the tribal hierarchy. It feels a pang of genuine, visceral fear, a survival fear, that you are falling behind, which might lead to social exclusion. So, you spend money you haven't earned to buy things you don't even like, all to satisfy a primitive urge to remain a valued member of the pack. We aren't buying status symbols because we're vain. We're buying them because our biology thinks our life depends on it. Furthermore, we must address the concept of loss aversion. In the wild, losing a resource was often fatal. If you lost your food supply or your fire went out, you died. This led to a psychological setting where the pain of a loss is felt twice as intensely as the joy of a gain. This is why so many people are paralyzed by the thought of investing. When you see the stock market drop by 10%, your brain doesn't see a buying opportunity or a natural market cycle. It sees a predator attacking your food stores. It screams at you to stay safe, to withdraw, to keep your money in a low-interest savings account where you can touch it, even if inflation is slowly eroding its value. Your survival instincts are wired to prioritize not losing over actually winning. Finally, we have to talk about the sheer exhaustion of modern decision-making. Our ancestors made a handful of high-stakes decisions a day. We make thousands. Every time you open an app, every time you walk through a grocery store, every time you see a targeted ad, your brain is forced to calculate value, risk, and social standing. By the time you finish a long day of work, your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, is completely drained of its limited energy. When your logical brain shuts down, your primitive brain, the limbic system, takes the wheel. This is why you make your most impulsive financial decisions when you're tired, stressed, or hungry. You aren't choosing to be irresponsible. You are reverting to your most basic, impulsive settings because the modern world has simply overwhelmed your biological capacity for restraint. You are a 20,000-year-old brain trying to survive a 24-hour digital shopping mall. The moment of true realization, the moment when the weight begins to lift, comes when you stop viewing your brain as an enemy and start seeing it as an outdated operating system. You wouldn't try to run the latest, most demanding software on a computer from 30 years ago and then get angry when it crashes. You would understand the limitations of that hardware. You would find workarounds. You would realize that the crashes aren't a sign of failure. They are just a sign of a mismatch between the task and the tool. The turning point in your financial journey happens when you realize that you cannot and should not rely on willpower alone. Willpower is a modern, fragile invention. it's like a battery that drains a little more with every decision you make. Compared to the ancient roaring power of instinct, willpower is a candle in a hurricane. The secret to building wealth isn't to become a person who has more discipline. It's to become a person who designs an environment where discipline is no longer the primary requirement for success. When you truly grasp that your brain is wired to stay poor by seeking immediate safety and social status, you gain a powerful new perspective. You gain the ability to step outside of your own impulses. You can look at a craving for an expensive gadget and say, "That's just my inner hunter-gatherer trying to secure my place in the tribe." You can look at a market dip and say, "That's just my loss aversion trying to protect me from a threat that doesn't exist." This shift, moving from being the victim of your instincts to being the curious observer of them, is where financial freedom actually begins. It connects your money back to your psychology. It transforms a stressful daily battle of me versus my impulses into a calm, strategic game of systems. You stop fighting the waves, and you start learning how to sail with the wind, even when the wind is blowing in a direction you didn't choose. So, knowing that our hardware is outdated, how do we practically dismantle the biological trap? We don't do it by being stronger. We do it by being smarter. We start by automating the decisions that our logical brain is too tired to make. If you wait until the end of the month to see what's left over to save, your present bias will win every single time. It's not a fair fight. You have to remove the choice entirely. Set up an automatic transfer to your investments or savings the very minute your paycheck hits. By the time your primitive brain even realizes the money is there, it's already gone, safely tucked away where your impulses can't reach it. You are essentially hiding resources from your own internal hunter-gatherer. Another powerful tool is the wait and reflect rule, which acts as a circuit breaker for your dopamine loops. Because our impulses are designed for immediate action, they often fade if given just a small amount of time. If you feel the urge to buy something that isn't on your pre-planned list, force yourself to wait 72 hours. Usually, after 3 nights of sleep, the survival hit of dopamine has subsided, the limited time panic has cleared, and your prefrontal cortex can step back in to ask if this purchase actually moves you closer to the person you want to become. To combat the tribal status instinct, we have to become the architects of our own social environment. If your social media feed is a constant stream of people flaunting new cars, exotic vacations, and designer labels, your brain will perpetually live in a state of high-alert status anxiety. It will feel like you are failing the tribe. You must ruthlessly curate your digital and physical world. Unfollow the accounts that trigger your not enough instinct. Surround yourself with people who value freedom, peace of mind, and time over logos and labels. When you change the tribe you compare yourself to, you hack your social survival instinct to work in your favor. We also need to reframe our relationship with risk. Our brains are wired to fear the loss of $100 today more than they fear being broke 30 years from now. To fix this, we have to make the future you feel like a real, living person. Close your eyes and imagine yourself at 70. What are you wearing? Where are you living? What does your day look like? When that version of you becomes a vivid, emotional reality, your survival instinct begins to include them in its calculations. You start to feel that loss aversion, not for the money you're investing today, but for the life that future you might lose if you don't take action. Lastly, acknowledge decision fatigue as a physical reality. Never make a major financial decision after 6 p.m. or after a stressful day at work. Recognize that your responsible brain has a battery life. By honoring your biological limits, you stop setting yourself up for failure. You learn to wait for the morning when your modern brain is recharged and ready to protect your future from your past. If you've spent years feeling like you're bad with money, I want you to take a long, deep breath and let that shame go. You aren't broken. You aren't uneducated. You are a biological masterpiece that was perfected over eons to survive in a world of extreme scarcity. You are carrying the survival equipment of a hero from the distant past, and you are simply trying to figure out how to use it in a world of plastic and pixels. It is completely natural that this feels difficult. But now that you can see the wires, you don't have to be a slave to the machine. You can start building the small, quiet systems that protect you from your own ancient impulses. You can choose to define your own tribe. You can choose to define your own enough. The journey to true wealth isn't about changing the core of who you are. It's about understanding who you've always been. It's about building a bridge between the ancient wisdom of your survival instincts and the modern dreams of your highest self. It won't happen all at once. There will be days when the now feels too loud to ignore. There will be days when you fall back into the trap. And that's okay. Just remember that every time you pause before a purchase, every time you automate a saving, and every time you choose your long-term peace over a short-term thrill, you are doing something revolutionary. You are evolving. You are reclaiming your future from your history. Be patient with yourself. This is a long game, and the goal isn't to be perfect. It's to be just a little bit more aware than you were yesterday. Progress is more important than perfection. You're doing better than you think, and you have everything you need to win.